Have you ever had the opportunity to learn from someone who was truly an expert in their field, or someone who was renowned and whose time and mentorship or teaching was in great demand? It is a privilege to be able to learn from someone who is deeply steeped in a particular area of expertise, who is passionate about what they do, that cannot help but spill over into lives and those who are around them. And increasingly, we have more and more access to being able to learn in that way. Some of you may have purchased courses from the organization The Great Courses, publishing courses from experts in different areas and making them available to people outside of university. There's also a website by the name of Masterclass that has courses that are taught by people who have particular renown in their own areas. And when we have the chance to draw from that kind of talent, it can be a great boost. I'm thinking of this because Jesus is speaking to his disciples in the gospel that we just heard about what they have heard but what they have not heard. And imagine the experience of theirs of being able to be in his direct presence, learning and seeing and growing from the example that he set. And we're mindful that when we think about those who had that privilege, it is not only the traditional 12 disciple apostles, but others who came and spent more limited periods of time with him, who came to be followers of his, and who were able to soak up not only information, but probably even more spiritually significantly, the opportunity to revel, to bask in the very presence of God incarnate. So Jesus says to his disciples in our hearing this morning, "I still have many things to say to you, but you cannot bear them now." And I don't think that he's talking down to them. I don't think this is a comment that is intended to diminish their capacity for being able to receive all that he has to offer. But instead, I'm imagining that he is being sensitive to how much they are able to take in at a given time. You may have had the experience in which you were trying to learn, whether it was in a formal class setting, whether it was in a new job situation, or whether it was in choosing a project or a hobby of your own, and it was like drinking from a fire hose, and you had all this stuff coming at you, and at one point you just reached saturation, and you could have had more stuff being offered to you. Perhaps that has happened to you, but it is kind of like the comic where the student his hand in class and says, "Teacher, can I be excused? My brain is going to explode." And I suspect that Jesus had a good gauge on that for his followers. I suspect that knowing all that he wanted to be able to give them and share with them and show them, he had to plan out how much he could do at a time. You don't want to be the coach who is working with a player and tells them 7 things to pay attention to all at once and then says, "How come you're not doing these 3?" You can only do so much at a time. And so when we think about the trajectory that the disciples were on in the course of the time that they spent with Christ, what they did learn and how they did grow was truly remarkable. Coming from that very beginning place in each of their lives in which they responded to a calling but had no idea what was in store for them, until the time in which they had to say goodbye right before Jesus' crucifixion, the amount of knowledge, the amount of capability that they must have gained was awesome. And so what Jesus is saying, I still have many things to say to you, but you cannot bear them now, could feel a bit sorrowful. It could feel as though there is more in store, but the clock ran out. They couldn't get to everything. The school year ended. The time came to a close, and there were going to be things that they were missing out on. We might have had a certain sense of this when we have journeyed with those whom we have cared about to the end of life, and you think about all of the life experience and relationships that have been accumulated and all of the knowledge that they have gained. And for many people, there's this moment of real deep sorrow in imagining that at the death of someone, all of that disappears. And that could have been the case for Jesus' followers. They could have been in a place where they were desperate for just another week or another month. And when he says, you cannot bear them now, I can imagine some of them thinking, well, let's just give it a try. Just try us. Come on, let's do what we can. But the story doesn't end with all of that being lost at Jesus' death, because he says in the immediate next sentence, when the Spirit of truth comes, he will guide you into all the truth. What he's telling them is their opportunity to be immersed in the things of God is not limited by the span of his life. And that is the spirit of revelation, of inspiration, of companionship that is a part of our celebration on this Trinity Sunday, our namesake Sunday. The celebration that in 3 different manifestations of the divine, that there is a constant and ongoing opportunity for us to bask in and learn from and grow from the presence of God. And so Jesus' promise to them was, there are things that you cannot bear now, but you will be able to, and when you are ready, you will have the opportunity. So if we think back to those times in which we may have been fully saturated, we may have been drinking from a fire hose and just had enough, we needed some time to assimilate those things into our being and our practice. We needed some time to manifest those things that we had learned into life actions and patterns. But after a certain period of time, we did that. We did assimilate those things. The fire hose slowed from a flood to a manageable stream. And we got to a place in which we were once again ready to take more. We have the ability in cycles in our lives to learn and to absorb, and then to go flat for a little while and to practice. And then, having put that into practice, we're ready to learn and to absorb some more and to grow. And the Holy Spirit's presence in our lives is a constant availability to us when we are in those places where we can learn and grow more. Because the alternative is the truly discouraging and sorrowful circumstance. If we ever get to a place in which the plateau becomes permanent and we think that there's nothing else that we possibly can or want to learn or grow in. There are different capabilities that we have at different stages in our lives, but the Holy Spirit never gets to a place with you or I where Holy Spirit says, he's done, she's done, there's nothing more to do, move on to the next one. Jesus' lifespan was finite, as are ours, but the being and the presence of God is infinite. It is not only with us throughout the entirety of our days, but it transcends our life and is available to show us how God is leading us forward. That is at the heart of the celebration, I believe, of Trinity Sunday. That in God's never-failing presence, there may be things that God has to show us that we cannot bear now, but it will not be forever. That our task and ability to respond is to take the things that we have received in the past and to integrate them and to absorb them into our lives, to practice them to the best of our ability, and then to be self-aware enough to know that when we come to that place where the sponge is not completely saturated anymore, where the fire hose has diminished, to say, God, I'm ready. Show me where next. Show me what you have in store for me. Show me and tell me the things that I could not bear before, but that I can now. The gift never goes away. It comes in stages. And so Jesus' promise of the Holy Spirit to his followers was this assurance to them that they would never outlive their usefulness, that they would never outlive their preciousness in the eyes and in the sight of God. And that as long as they yearned to be close to God, to serve God, and to be blessed by God, that there would always be more in store for them. May we take that as a source of hope in our own lives, and also offer it to others in moments that may feel despairing or may feel without hope. That Holy Spirit is our constant companion, journeying with us in the times in which we are at capacity, and lifting us up, inspiring and strengthening us in the times in which we are ready to grow. God, our constant companion, is sensitive to know what our needs are at all times and able to be responsive to us in the things that we need at each appropriate stage in our lives. With an image from a game show that you may have seen. Remember when the contestant is standing in front of some kind of display of a whole bunch of prizes, and the host is making this big deal about all the prizes, and you've won this and you've won that, and here's the showcase and it's got all of these things, and the contestant is looking awed and overwhelmed, and then after it seems like it's just so abundant that it can't get any better, a voice comes from the studio and says, "But wait, there's more." This is the gift of God's Holy Spirit to us. This is the promise that Jesus made to his disciples. I have given you all that I can give you right now, and it is amazing, and it's abundant, and it's wonderful. But wait, there's more.